I'm Brittany with Our Land of Learning, and today I kind of wanted to share some of the resources we're using for our ancient Egyptian unit study, as well as kind of what we did for our first week of school. I am currently homeschooling my two children, he's in second grade, a second grader and a fourth grader. And we decided to kick off our year with ancient Egypt. So I'll start with our read aloud. I really questioned myself about this read aloud. I didn't know if it would really fit in. I mean, I know it has some, all I knew about it was that it had some tie-ins with Egypt. I know it's by an amazing author, but I didn't really know if it was too out there or too long. It's a pretty hefty book. We have been reading it all week. We made a little chunk into it. Guys, this book is amazing. My kids are all in on this book. We recently concluded Harry Potter, and so this has just enough magic in it so far that it's kind of, filling the Harry Potter sized hole in their little hearts. What I really like about this book is that while it is completely fictional, it also has a lot of factual information in it. So maybe this week we were studying a lot about hieroglyphics and things like that, and then we'll be reading something, and then in here, towards the very beginning of the book, they're at the museum and the Rosetta Stone blows up, and we had just read about the Rosetta Stone, so it was a huge deal. They're like, oh, the Rosetta Stone, we just read about that. So this is a wonderful tie-in. I think it's kind of important to have fiction that you can tie into your non-fiction parts of what you're teaching children. They learn so much better when it can also be fun. So this book is a hit. I'm so glad I went with this, and I can't wait to finish the book. My kids really, really like it. Okay, so I am having my kids do assigned reading, which really just amounts to 20 minutes a day of reading, except I give them an array of books to choose from. I introduced a treasure chest this year, so every time they finish a book, they get to pick a treasure. And I really underestimated them because my son's already read 3 books in the first week, and my daughter's read 2. So I may have to rethink how we do that a little bit. I underestimate their reading abilities. This is the one that my 4th grader's on right now, Horrible Histories, Awful Egyptians. Pretty sure I got this at a library book sale. They love Horrible Histories on Amazon, and so it was really nice to have a book. It's pretty simple. There's some comic strip, I don't know if you can see, some comic strip style information, some blocks of text. I mean, she read this, she just started this yesterday, and she's already this far into it. So she says it's really funny. I haven't read it, but if it's anything like the shows, I'm sure it really is funny. This book, this is Ancient Egypt, an Interactive History Adventure Revised Edition. So it's one of those you choose books, and I had previously gotten her one on the Salem witch trials, and she hated it. So when she saw another one, she was not excited about it, but she loved this book. She went through multiple endings, and she read well beyond the time that I had intended for her to. It has some nice illustrations in it, some pictures. I may actually put this one for my 2nd grader to read as well. I think he would like it too. So this will probably transfer into his book box. But she's already finished it. She loved it. This book I have in her book box. I don't know that she's going to read it. It was originally what I thought I was going to do for a read aloud. The Pharaohs of Ancient Egypt. It is kind of just a heavy factual book, and I'm so glad I didn't choose this one. I'm so glad we went with the Red Pyramid, because this one I think would be too dull for them as a read aloud. I will keep it perhaps when they're a little bit older and we revisit Ancient Egypt. If we revisit Ancient Egypt, this would probably be a really good book for maybe a middle schooler, but I'm kind of glad I didn't go with it. It is in her book box. If she chooses to read it, that's fine. But if she doesn't, then that's okay. It's just another resource we have on the shelf. This I also considered for the read aloud, the Egypt game. And I suspect she will read this one. I haven't read it. I don't know a lot about it. But we have that for her. She's already read this one. Surprise, she picked it because it was the shortest one in her book box. It's not really about ancient Egypt. It's about ice mummies, but mummies. So it was a loose tie-in, and sometimes I'll take that. So she's already read this one. My second grader's already read this one. They both liked it. I love these step into reading books. All right, on to my second grader. He's already read this one. I really underestimated just how much of a vivacious reader he is for 7. He read this in a day. So, Mummies in the Morning, Magic Treehouse. He said it was really good. He hasn't read this one yet, but I know he likes Geronimo Stilton, so The Mummy with No Name. These books are really great for younger readers because it's really broken up with a lot of pictures and colorful images, and he really enjoys these books. I don't think this one will take him too long. I think he'll probably read this one next. He's currently on a Geronimo Stilton book. This one has nothing to do with ancient Egypt. However, he was already in the middle of it and reading it, so he's about halfway through with it, so I'm just letting him finish it up. I may have to buy some more books for him to read. Like I said, I kind of underestimated just how fast he would get through these books. But for now, that's all we've got. Next up, we have You Wouldn't Want to Be Cleopatra. When we get to our week on pharaohs, it's kind of, Cleopatra's kind of a loose tie-in. She was at the very end. But I found it was cheap, so we're gonna use it. 100 facts you should know about mummies. I probably wouldn't have just bought this on my own. I got it at the library book sale and it was $1. So when we do our week on mummies, we're gonna read 25 facts a day is what I have planned. And I think it'll be a nice addition. It'll be something. This book I am so excited about. My 7-year-old has already flipped through it and is really into it. It's Inside Out Egyptian Mummy. Unwrap an Egyptian mummy layer by layer. They have several of these types of books, and every page is a different layer. I normally don't like books that just have tidbits of information all around the page. I find them really hard to follow and really hard to read aloud. But this one is so interactive that it doesn't bother me at all. It's really exciting. We will probably end up with every book in this series. This is one of the few books that I bought new. I am a huge fan of buying used books, but I couldn't find this one used, and I wanted it enough to buy it used. To buy it new. Next we have Gods and Goddesses of Ancient Egypt. This is a hefty book, so we're not doing it just for the week. We're doing mythology and gods and goddesses and religion and stuff. We are reading this a god or two a day throughout our entire unit study. You can see we've already done some. The illustrations in this book are so pretty. The quality of this book is so good. The chapters on the different gods and goddesses are just long enough to be perfect for an elementary aged kid. My kids love this book. I love this book. This is another one that I wanted enough to buy new. This book is amazing. I'll show you when I show you the artwork they've done this week that my 9-year-old has already used this for one of her art pieces, and I actually used it for our chalk drawing. My 7-year-old is a little bit too much of a perfectionist, so he's not getting much out of this book, but my daughter and I definitely are. And it basically guides you through how to, this is on our chalkboard, so I actually followed it. It's just a really easy step-by-step of how to draw the various things. Sphinx. It's a really cool book. This is the one, this is what my daughter did. She was drawing Ra, the sun god. So she followed this step by step, and then we looked at the completed image to kind of see how she might want to color it. And I got it on thrift books, but this one would be worth buying new if you can't find it. This is a really cool book. Geography matters in ancient Egypt. We haven't gotten into this yet, but we will. When I'm trying to plan out how I want to do them, I do these unit studies. I want to plan as many different subjects, I suppose, as I can into the unit. And this is all about the geography. In 2 weeks, I think we're going to be doing the Nile. So we'll be diving into this when we are learning about the Nile River. But it looks like a really great book from what I've seen. Ancient Egyptians and Their Neighbors, an activity guide. I really, really, really want to love this book because I've heard so many good things about these books in this series. And honestly, I mean, it's okay. We're going to read a few passages out of it, probably do a few activities out of it. I don't think it's the best. When I get to it, I will show you, but there's one that I think is so much better. This isn't a bad book. I mean, if you find it, definitely use it. I don't think it's necessary, and it's not really my favorite. We've already read this one, Seeker of Knowledge, The Man Who Deciphered Egyptian Hieroglyphs. It's just a picture book, a really elementary age kid friendly way of telling the story about how they were deciphered. It was fine. I mean, it was just a little picture book, read aloud. My kids liked it. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I like to add picture books in whenever I can, and this one was incredibly relevant to what we were learning about. So, I Am Cleopatra. This one will probably go into my daughter's book box, maybe my son's. I got it, as you can, it's still got the price tag on it. I got it for 50 cents at our library book sale. We normally read the Who Was books. I haven't actually gotten any of this series for them before. If we need a read aloud that week, I'll read it aloud. If not, it'll just go into her book bin. Mummy Math. I loved this book. This was adorable. It's really good for elementary age students. It takes you on a journey of these twins, and they get locked in this pyramid, and they have to find the burial chamber, and they have to follow a set of clues that have to do with geometric shapes, and it is adorable. My kids liked it. Highly recommend this book. It's such a sweet little story. You Wouldn't Want to Be a Pyramid Builder. Surprisingly, I haven't read any books in this series before, but I found it, so I got it. When the week we do pyramids, we'll use it, we'll read it. It looks fine. If you've ever read these books, I think they're all kind of the same from what I've seen. They're kind of a blend of like a chunk of information and then some lighthearted bits on the side, kind of similar to Horrible Histories type thing, I think. It might take us a few days to get through it. I think it would be a lot if we just sat and read the whole book. So we might spread this out over the whole week. I'm not entirely sure. Lives of Extraordinary Women. I got this book on a whim one time, and it has Cleopatra in it. So I don't know where she's at in here. It's got a lot of different women, so this would be good for a lot. I don't normally buy books that cover a wide variety of topics because I will forget about them. They will get lost in my bookshelf and I will forget to utilize them. But this time I remembered because there's a section, I think she's the first one actually. Yeah, Cleopatra. So when we are learning about the pharaohs, we will read the little chapter about Cleopatra. It's just a few pages, cute little picture. Okay, next we have the Illustrated Book of Myths. It is something that's kind of falling apart that I got used. It covers like a wide range of different myths. We will just be finding, I have them written down in my planner, but we will just be reading the passages that are relevant to Egypt and their mythology. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy that one, but we had it. The Pharaohs Kitchen, the last week that we do this, it's a 7-week unit study. We are going to end it with a meal. So the Pharaohs Kitchen, we are going to plan out a meal and cook it together as a way to kind of celebrate the ending of our unit study. I haven't looked at it too much yet. It looks like there's a lot of information in here too that we will probably be reading that week, which is kind of cool for a cookbook. Kitchen planning, tools, manners, all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited about it, but I can't really tell you how much I like it because I haven't really looked at it that well yet. Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile. We are going to read this when we are doing our geography week. It is just a little elementary aged picture book. We're actually going to be making our own version of the Nile River and flooding it. So we'll probably read this around that time. Temple Cat. I got it because I liked the illustrations. I got it used. They're so pretty. We haven't read it yet. It's kind of falling apart. That's part of the risk you take when you buy used books. I might try to mend this one because I think it's so pretty. It's just a little picture book. Science in Ancient Egypt. This is a great book. However, I regret getting it because, well, I don't regret getting it. I regret integrating it into our unit study because it's too much for my kids at the age that they are. It's just kind of heavy. I lose them really, really quickly in this book. We're gonna keep trying. And it could be because the chapter that we started with was the early Egyptian mathematics, and it was just too much for them. It was talking about how they recorded numbers, and my kids were like, what are you talking about? They much preferred the Little Mummy math book. And I think that's something I struggle with. My kids are extremely bright, and sometimes I forget that they are only in 2nd and 4th grade, and this book is a little much for them. It's a great book and a great resource, and we're going to continue with it as planned, but in retrospect, I probably would have saved it a couple of years until they're a little older. This one we're using as our spine, Everything Ancient Egypt. These kind of books are not my absolute favorite because, as you can see, they're kind of spread out. They've got little bits all over the place. But actually, it's not that bad because we'll just read them like a page at a time. Like when we're learning about arts and crafts, we'll read this page. When we're reading about pyramids, we'll read about the pyramid page. So it was a good starting point to plan out the unit. Looking through here, seeing what topics I want to cover to break it up week by week. It's a good book. We're definitely using it. It's nothing too exciting. It's just a National Geographic book. Last but not least is this book. If you were on a budget and you could only buy one book for an entire Egypt unit study, this is the one to get. I love this book so much. It's definitely what we've used the most thus far. Not only does it have projects and arts and crafts that you can do in here that are really easy. I mean, my kids haven't had any trouble with what we've done this week. It has information. So, okay, so farming. It gives you all of this wonderful informational text with illustrations about farming. And then it gives you a project to do. We went through this week because we were learning about hieroglyphics. We read all of the information about papyrus. They actually used this book for inspiration to draw. And then, so it gives you all of this wonderful information about papyrus and how they used it and how papyrus went extinct and was brought back. And it's just so interesting. And then there's a project where you make your own papyrus. This was so easy. This took nothing. My kids loved it. I'll try to insert a shot of how theirs turned out. Kind of smooth it down a little. Good job.
My way to get it through is to like kind of just push it.
That's a good technique.
Can I just drown multiple at a time?
You can, as long as they don't get on top of each other in there. They loved it. It was a very hands-on, I think, experiment, very tactile, I think it really, whenever they get to get their hands dirty and really, it's one thing to learn about it, right? About how they would soak the papyrus and then they would lay them crisscross and then the gum from inside would kind of fuse them together. That's great, but then when they're taking their own paper and they're putting it out themselves and watching it dry and using the flour and water to create the gum paste, so to speak, I think it really makes it just sink in better. And my kids loved this. We also made berry ink out of blackberries that was in here. I have to tell you, this ink was way cooler than I thought it would be. It worked really well. It dyes a really, really dark purple, or dries, I mean. And they had a lot of fun with that too. So yeah, this book is just so good. I think there's some more in there. Yeah, they've got a few more in their series. And I'm gonna get all of them because this is my favorite book ever so far. And you can see they've got, let's see, a timeline. I don't know if you can see that. Timeline, map, introduction, the foundations of ancient Egypt, boats, farming, papyrus, homes, bread, games, tunics and fashion, jewelry, amulets, coal and perfume, royal crook and flail, pyramids, temples, mummies, hieroglyphs, and that's it. But that's plenty. If you wanted to do a unit study with just this book and maybe a few YouTube videos, you'd be golden. So like I said, I will try to insert some video or pictures of them making papyrus. But they also made ostriches. This is my daughter's. This was so easy to make. So we were able to talk about how the apprentices who were going to be scribes, they were male most of the time, around 10 years old when they would start, and their fathers were scribes. And so it was a really big privilege to be able to grow up and be a scribe, and how papyrus paper was way too expensive to create and for everyone to have. So when they were learning how to read and write, they would take something called an ostrich, which was just broken pieces of pottery, and that's what they would use. So we just have a little terracotta planter and then some chalkboard paint, and then they use chalk on it. Easy, pretty inexpensive, and now they can use these to just draw on all throughout our unit study. Try to, one second. Okay. The other thing that we're doing is, and I got this idea from Pepper and Pine, whose channel is amazing, and her children do a Waldorf education, and while we are not a Waldorf family, we're very eclectic. I love the idea of the main lesson books, where in elementary school, they will do an illustration and then a little narration to kind of review or remember what they've learned. So this is my son. Again, he's in 2nd grade. He just did a pretty little watercolor background for his cover, and then wrote ancient Egypt, and then, sorry, this is my daughter's, this isn't my son's. That's her name in hieroglyphics. So, and then this is what I was talking about from that drawing book. She drew Ra, colored it in with pretty watercolor background, and then we've been using the Ohuhu alcohol markers. They're really good. If your kids really love Sharpies, they're kind of expensive, but they're kind of like a mid-tier art supply. They're in between Sharpies and Copics. I'm not buying Copics for my elementary aged kids, but I will buy them Ohuhus, and they worked out really well. So this is her version of Ra, and then on the back of her cover sheet, you can see I had her, my rule this year for her is that she has to write 4 sentences. So she wrote about Ra, the sun god. On the back of this, she wrote about the papyrus plant. And then here is her drawing of the papyrus plant and the hieroglyph for papyrus. This is my son's cover sheet. There's his name in hieroglyphs. On the back, I intended for him to write 2 sentences because he's in 2nd grade, but that is not going to happen. He is a perfectionist, and he wants his handwriting to look like a font or like that of like an adult. So I have to kind of tread lightly with him, and so we're settling for 1 sentence right now. He did not draw Ra, the sun god. He did the Eye of Ra. I will say I sketched it for him, and I will probably continue to sketch harder things for him because he takes it it's too hard for him. He's such a perfectionist that if he can't draw it the way maybe his sister can or that I can, then he thinks he's just garbage and he cries. And I want this to be empowering. I want art to be fun. I want it to be something that engages him, not something that stresses him out. So I sketch it out in pencil. He colors it in, and it's working really well, and we will do that for honestly as long as he needs for me to do that. Here's his 1 sentence on papyrus, and here is his beautiful, same thing as my daughter's. There's the plant, and there's the hieroglyph. Beyond that, this week we have watched several YouTube videos, including the Horrible Histories collection about the Egyptians. Hi, sorry for the video abruptly cutting out. I'm kind of new to this, so I included a little clip of my son making blackberry ink so I could end the video properly. I'm probably going to do a video every week of the activities we do. They'll be shorter than this, so if you want to see more about how we learn about ancient Egypt throughout this unit study, just stay tuned. Thanks for watching.